So, a few months ago, I watched the entire Clone Wars series on Disney Plus, and I thought it was very good. Now, I still don't think that it's the best Star Wars show ever made like so many other people claim it is. That title still goes to Andor in my opinion, just because there were some episodes scattered across the Clone Wars that were a real pain to get through, but the show makes up for it with some of the best, most well-written story arcs I've ever seen from a Star Wars show. So obviously the show gets a lot of praise, and rightfully so, but there is one thing in particular that I've seen the show get praised a lot for, and it's something that I don't really agree with, and that is the argument that the show quote-unquote fixed Anakin Skywalker. And the reason I disagree with this argument is because, in my opinion, for the show to really fix Anakin, it should have used what was already shown to us of his character in the movies and developed upon those ideas, but unfortunately it didn't do that. Now, don't get me wrong, there are still fragments of his movie self still present in this show. For example, him constantly disobeying the Council's orders during his missions, some moments where his temper gets the better of him and he ends up killing separatists with his lightsaber, but the problem is that at his core, this is still clearly a very different version of Anakin, one that is far more charismatic and has a lot more control over his emotions, whereas in Attack of the Clones, we saw him being rash, arrogant, annoying, disobedient, and just downright creepy. Now obviously George Lucas and Dave Filoni did this because this wasn't a movie, it was a TV series. They knew that we were going to be stuck with Anakin for several seasons, so they decided to drastically change his character. They made him a lot more likable, made him the hero of the story, so that way, his eventual turn to the dark side would be even more tragic and heartbreaking when it finally occurred. The problem is that this show wanted to have its cake and eat it too, and in my opinion, that was its biggest mistake. They should have used these movies to their advantage, but instead, all they did was essentially create an entirely different character, one that shared some similarities to Anakin, but overall was just not Anakin. And the funny thing is, this isn't even the first time this has happened. In Revenge of the Sith, Anakin is noticeably different to how he acted in Attack of the Clones. He's more likable, he's funnier, he's more mature, but I can buy his change in demeanor here because Episode 3 is set 3 whole years after Episode 2. In Episode 2, Anakin was 19. He was still a teenager, so it makes sense for him to be more arrogant and cocky, but in Episode 3, Anakin is 22. He's a young adult who has now been promoted to a war general, so he has since grown in both age and experience. This makes sense, but what doesn't make sense is for a Clone Wars Anakin to already be mature from the very start of the show. Like, how? Because the show was only set 3 months after Attack of the Clones. Now, you could argue that Anakin becoming a war general made him a lot more mature because of the huge amount of responsibility that came with the role, and you'd be right. But the problem is that this isn't actually shown to us in the series, which is a big missed opportunity in my opinion. Seeing Anakin go from an arrogant, disobedient little brat to a competent war general would have been amazing character development for him, and it would have kept the canon a lot more consistent, but nope. Instead, the show just starts off with him already as a competent war general, because why waste time giving more depth to your character when instead they can just know how to do everything well from the start? Another problem with this show is the way they handled Anakin's fall to the dark side. When I went into this show, I thought that with each season, we would see him being pushed further and further into the dark, so that by the end of the show, he would eventually become the same person we saw in Revenge of the Sith, but again, this doesn't happen. Season 7 Anakin and Season 1 Anakin really aren't that different from each other. Again, there are moments where his more sinister side does come through, but the problem is that the show never really goes further than these small moments. None of the other Jedi are ever worried or even seem the least bit concerned that Anakin is just able to kill people so casually without a second thought. Not even Obi-Wan, who is meant to be one of the closest people to him in the Order. Basically what would happen during these types of scenes is that Anakin would kill a separatist that he didn't need to kill in that situation, and then Obi-Wan will say something like, Anakin, why did you do that? Come on, man. Come on. He talks to him the same way a parent would talk to a toddler. He never, not even once, expresses concern that, hey, maybe my apprentice isn't all that okay, you know, mentally. I can understand the other Jedi not paying much attention to things like this because they don't see Anakin that often, and they're more like colleagues to him anyway, but Obi-Wan? The same guy that Anakin considered a father? No, I don't buy it. The show even had a golden opportunity to explore Anakin's mental state after the events of Season 5, seeing his own Padawan leave the Order because of the arrogance of the Jedi. This should have made Anakin furious and deepened his mistrust in the Council. It should have been another key event that further contributed to him turning to the dark side, but the show never even once explores how Anakin feels after this huge significant event. We don't see him act any differently towards the Jedi. He never even confides in anyone he trusts about the situation. Not Obi-Wan, not Palpatine, not Rex, not even Padme, his own wife. Imagine how sick it would have been to actually see the tension between Anakin and Windu that was explored in Revenge of the Sith, or him going to Palpatine during this very stressful time in his life. That would have been so cool to see, but again, we don't get that. So overall, I guess what I'm trying to say with this video is that they could have handled Anakin a lot better. Although the show does give us a lot more context for what led to his fall to the dark side, it still wasn't enough in my opinion. Overall, I'd give the show an 8.5 out of 10, but if they had used up all the opportunities they had, like Anakin learning the ropes of becoming a general, expanding on his dark moments, and actually explored how he felt about Ahsoka leaving the Order, which further contributed to his distrust in the Jedi and reinforced his trust in Palpatine, then the show could have easily gone up to a 9 out of 10. But this is all just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and as always, if you like the video, make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, retweet, reseal, rehydrate, and I will see you all in the next video.